Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pastoral Thoughts Podcast. This is your host, Jack Young. And today in studio, this is Sunday evening after a full day of services, Dr. Randy King. Pastor Randy King is with us once again, and I'm very thankful to him to come on and just let me to use his brain, his wisdom one more time on our show. So what are we talking about, Brother King?
Well, I'm very burdened for our homes in the Christian homes that I deal with, and I'm so grieved that the devil is successful at driving people to divorce and the amount of infidelity, and I just hate the devil more every day. And so anything we can do to help preserve marriages, and some people think it's kind of an impossible goal, but I think you can be married plus happy. I think that's and so I'm really strong on trying to encourage men to lead their homes in such a way that it honors Christ and follows the Bible in its pattern and examples.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about true love in marriage. Now, Brother King did this in our afternoon session at church, and I believe that we will have that up on our YouTube at Lighthouse Bible Baptist Church on our YouTube channel. We did record it, but I know that several people responded to it, and people were talking about it afterwards and saying how it was a blessing. And so I asked Brother King if we're having dinner. I said, "Hey, could we do a podcast of true love in marriage?" And so he's going to accommodate us. And so I listened very closely, and Brother King will have some wisdom for us concerning marriage.
Well, thank you. I used a text from 1 John chapter 4 and the example of Christ in verses 9 and 10, where it says, "In this was manifested the love of God toward us, because that God sent his only begotten Son into the world, that we might live through him. Herein is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins." And so that premise that God initiated the love, that we're the responders to the love that he initiated. And the whole passage continues and gets down to verse 19, where it says, "We love him because he first loved us." And so in the session, I made mention that I believe it's the husband's responsibility to be the head of his home, to lead his family, that he has and stands in the position of having the authority of God to lead his home. But he's not just God's representative in authority. He's supposed to be God's representative in character. It's not enough for any leader, whether it be a pastor or a king, a secular government leader, or a husband, just to say, "I get to be the boss, I get to be the boss." They're supposed to show God's character of love and humility and instruction and initiating direction. And I believe with all my heart that when God made Eve, that she was to respond to the love that the husband initiated. And so it's in that vein that I presented
So the man's the instigator.
Yes,
of love.
He
initiates it.
We always say he initiates mental attitude love. Not talking about just the bedroom. We're talking about how the climate of love, the atmosphere of love, the loving relationship in the home, that he reaches out and takes his wife's hand, that he demonstrates.
So he's supposed to reach for her hand and hold her hand. He's supposed to be the first one that says, "I love you, honey."
Right. To open the door for her.
He's supposed to be the first one to write a note or to leave a gift.
Or to buy flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But we went through in this afternoon service, and one of the things I do is I draw a chart, and on the front, on the whiteboard, I always have in the left column men, and in the middle column women, in the right column Johnny Appleseed. And the thrust
J.A.
the thrust of it just goes simply, And this is just meant to be preventative medicine to keep marriages from falling apart. And I point out that if you talk to a 40-year-old man who's been married for 20 years and you ask him if he loves his wife, he'll tell you, absolutely, I love my wife. What's not to love? And he'll delineate, hey, my wife is a great cook, and she's a wonderful hostess, and boy, she's a dynamite mother, and she keeps the house clean, and the laundry's done, and boy, she's a great partner in the bedroom, and what's not to love? I mean, everything about her I just love in so many ways. And
so a man is prone to bring the reason for his love for his wife would be things she brings to the table.
Right, what he gets
what she
out
does,
of her,
or what he's getting out of the bargain.
Yes,
she's a good cook. She takes good care of his kids.
Yes,
she takes care of the finances. She does this or that and the other.
And of course, then in contrast to that, if you ask the average woman, is that the true love, what you really consider true love? And they almost unanimously say, absolutely not. When we fell in love, when I met him, he was asking me questions, showing an interest in me. He convinced me that he loved me as a person. He loved me for the person that I am. And he learned to walk through what we call interest doors. A 16-year-old boy that's after a girl knows instinctively, hey, tell me about your family. Hey, do you get along with your sister? Hey, where all have you traveled? Do you really like your mom and dad? When you get older, what kind of a career do you want? What's your favorite food? Where would you love to travel? What's your favorite sport? When we talk about interpersonal relations, the term for that is interest doors. When you care about a person, when you want to get to know a person, you learn, you cultivate the skill of walking through those interest doors.
They're walking through the interest doors when they first started dating for hours upon hours every single week.
Absolutely. And
talking on the phone, writing letters.
Right. And I pointed out in the session that they go to high school together, and he'll walk her from class to class, and then he'll walk her to the bus, and then when he gets off the bus, he'll call her and say, how you doing, and what are you going to do tonight? And the woman responds to that. Her heart convinces her, this guy really cares about me as a person. And you talk to a woman who's 40 years old who's been married, and she'll tell you she has very clear memory of that's how she fell in love. And she fell in love with him before she ever was in bed with him, before she was ever cooking his meals or cleaning his house or changing the kid's diaper or doing the ironing or hosting anything. When there was none of that in their life, she loved him because he loved her. He cared about her. Hey, you look worried today. Hey, that yellow dress looks good on you. Hey, I like the way your hair is today. The guy, when they were dating, courting, he knew how to initiate conversations that the woman received and was so thrilled with. He cares about me. And in response to that love, she agreed to marry him. Hey, that's wonderful. And I said in the session, and I repeat here, it's the same with us as Christians. When we heard the gospel and our need to be saved, we called on Christ and we responded to the love that he showed on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then as we grew in Christ, as we went along, as we matured, then it was, hey, I have peace that passes all understanding I never had before. Hey, I have a purpose in life that I never had before. Hey, I have the capacity to forgive those who have wronged me like I never had before. Hey, I have assurance and security that I'm accepted in the beloved, and I don't have to fret about whether or not he'll really receive me into heaven. And a lot of things I got the day I got saved, but as I grew, I learned and embraced them. And in that same way, in marriage, you fall in love and get married, and then you find, hey, this is a great traveling companion and a good cook and a wonderful person to play a game with, or somebody that I enjoy raising kids with. That comes later. But a woman holds on to those early memories much more than the man does. And the man begins to take her for granted that, hey, of course I love her. I go to work every day. I bring my paycheck home. Of course I love her. Why is that even a question? But true love in marriage, the husband cultivates the ability to express and demonstrate over and over the continuing love he has for his wife. And one of the
so it's not enough for me to go to work every day, pay the bills, come home every single night to her, and mow the lawn, things and pull my end of the bargain.
Well,
not enough.
You know the joke about the guy that came home and sat in the easy chair, and he says, "Now look, woman, I want you to bring me a glass of iced tea and give me the remote for the TV. And then I want you to draw me a hot bath. And then I'm going to soak in the tub. And when I'm done, I guess you know who's going to comb my hair and get me dressed." And she said, "Yes, the Undertaker." But
hey, I got a good one. You know, J.D. Vance, who's Trump's
sure, yeah.
VP pick. I was reading his book, Hillbilly Elegy, like 3 years ago. I know there's a movie. I never watched the movie. But his grandmother, who was somewhat of a Christian, you know, cussing Christian or whatever, read her Bible every day and, you know, used colorful language all day long. And so these hillbillies, his grandfather was an alcoholic, but he was completely dry. And grandma, I mean, they're mountain people, you know, they're hillbillies, Scotch, you know, living in Appalachia.
Yeah, yeah.
And mama says, or grandma says to grandpa, this is before JD was born, if you come home drunk one more time, I'm going to pour gasoline on you and light you on fire. And sure enough, he came home drunk, passed out on the couch, and he woke up to her pouring gasoline all over him, and she lit him on fire.
Wow.
And somehow he got himself out, or put out the fire, and he never drank again.
Wow, yeah. She put feet to her prayers, right?
She did. She sure did. With the fear of God in him, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm saying, and I mentioned a woman, the day she walks down the aisle and gets married, she's at the peak of her beauty, her virtue, her youth, her beauty, and as she goes through life and has a few kids, and now maybe gravity starts to win the battle and a few things start to sag, and now she's got a few more pounds, and now she faces, when she looks in the mirror, kind of a declining value. It's kind of downhill from 22 to 82 as far as her appearance. And so many, many, many women, not all, but many, struggle with feeling unloved or unlovable or unlovely. And good husbands fill that gap. As she's not as much natural beauty, they learn to appreciate all of the things that she is, her character, and what a good mother she is, and how, and it's not enough for him to see that. He has to continually reassure her, I find you attractive. I love being with you. I enjoy your company. I want to talk. And I'm saying husbands can get very, very obtuse, very alone. And then there's a deficit in that woman that makes her vulnerable to the third category, and that's Johnny Appleseed. Mm-hmm. And I went through and I said, whether it be a woman at work or even a woman at when she's at church, or even if she's in a grocery store and the guy there sees her every week, there are always men out there who are professionals at worming their way into the heart and life and bedroom of a woman. Mm-hmm. And Johnny Appleseed, I use that euphemism as the guy that's just spreading his seed all over the country. He's married or not, he is absolutely an adulterer.
And he fishes 24/7. He's always fishing.
He's always looking. And when he says to that woman, hey, you look pretty in royal blue, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't commit adultery that day. He says to her the next week, hey, what's your favorite food? Do you like Italian or Mexican or Chinese better? And he would swear on a stack of Bibles, I'm not trying to get in bed with your wife. I'm not trying to win her heart. I'm not trying to deceive her. I was just talking. But he knows he has an ulterior motive. He remembers that's how you convince a woman that you're interested in her. And so he walks through those same interest stories that her husband walked in 25 years earlier when he was in high school. And here's this guy.
So back home, lines of communication are cut off. There's no talking.
They just grow dead.
And those lines begin to be open with some person at work.
Right.
He's taking interest. He's listening. And he's like Satan in Genesis chapter 3.
Right.
Just asking questions and listening and understanding her.
Right. And I'm saying most often the woman doesn't even recognize that her heart is starting to respond to that guy's interest. Mm-hmm. The conversation has grown cold and indifferent with her husband. And here's a guy, hey, do you guys live in a 2-story house or a 1-story house? Hey, if you could travel anywhere, would you go to Europe or would you go to Hawaii? And if you confronted him, we're just chatting here. But whether she admits it or not, the woman finds herself spending 2 extra minutes in front of the mirror before she goes where this guy is. Mm-hmm. And now the color he said she looked good in, she wears
and since somebody unconsciously is taking interest in her, she walks with a little bit of a lift in her step.
Right. It's encouraging. She's bright as a penny now and happy. And I'm saying, as a pastor, what was so grievous to me is to have this continue until ultimately she says, sure, I can go out with you for lunch. I didn't pack a lunch. And then it's, hey, sure, you can come to my house. I'll show you where we live. And ultimately, she gets in bed with the man. And it didn't start that way. She had no intention of it being that way. But lo and behold, they come in my office and she says, Pastor, I've found my soulmate. I don't love my husband anymore. I've found my soulmate. He understands me. He knows me. He just is so sensitive to me. And he's even finishing my sentences, and he knows everything about me. And I want a divorce, and I want to go off with Johnny Appleseed. Half of the time, Johnny Appleseed, after the divorce, laughs in her face and says, I had no intentions of marrying you. I don't want a 50-year-old woman with 5 kids. I was just trying to get what I was trying to get. And the woman is shocked, and there's a whole new counseling world there. But it just makes me so angry and so frustrated that this kind of snuck up on the woman. She was allowing her heart to be stolen from her husband, and the essence of the message was, husbands, don't let somebody love your wife more than you do. You should dwell with her according to knowledge. You should know what her greatest fears are. You should know whether or not she likes donuts with jelly in them or not. You should know whether or not she has great fears. Her grandpa died of cancer, her grandma died of cancer, her mom died of cancer, and how she lays awake at night with that fear. The husband should know more about his wife than any other person on the planet. Dwell with them according to knowledge. Know your wife, respond to your wife. And my premise is, husbands, if you're alerted, if you're forewarned, if you see that this is happening, do everything you can to repair the breach and re-win your wife's affection. You don't have to let some other man win her heart. I know many good, godly women that have fallen into adultery because Johnny Appleseed showed an interest in her in the most mundane way, in the most routine conversation, in the simplest approach, but he had an ulterior motive. And I don't mean to say that women are dumb or vulnerable, but it's basic human nature to want to be needed, to be loved, for people to know us and understand us and accept us for who we are. And if she doesn't get that from her husband, it's only natural for her to respond to it when she hears it from a man. I'm not justifying the behavior. I think she should guard her heart. I know she's responsible, bringing all her thoughts into captivity. I'm not excusing the behavior in any way, but I'm saying it happens, and it happens all too frequently. In Proverbs, when it says, surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. If a husband sees there's this trap, there's this danger, if the woman sees, hey, I might be vulnerable in this way, then to forewarn and offer cautions. And I'm saying, you take any woman that goes through her regular monthly cycle between puberty and menopause, and she can guard her heart if she's in a particularly outgoing day. Maybe she can dress a little more demure so she doesn't look like she's flirty, and maybe on a day when she's feeling a little more blue, she can wear her bright yellow dress and try to encourage a little better mood on a day that's not so good. And there are many, many things that can be done as preventative measures.
And the emotional need of the woman is to be met by the man. And let's talk about some anecdotal measures to this. I would think, because if I, for instance, we had 3 marriages so far this year at church. So I did 3 premarital counseling. So one of the things that we go through is a trichotomy of man. And so we are spirit, soul, and body. And so the spirit being the deepest part of a person.
Yep.
And if you can pray with your spouse, you're the closest to their heart that you can possibly be. Yep. And then also you can't be mad at your spouse and pray with them.
Right.
So we encourage family devotions where we pray together for the family. So there's that deep intimacy there, because you're gonna pray with somebody that's gonna be intimate. And then you have the soul, the seat of your emotions, and that has to do with heirs together of the grace of life. Did you hear about the little Jewish boy and the little Baptist boy, and they're arguing about how many times you can be married?
No.
So the Jewish said, you can only be married one time. And the Baptist boy said, no, 16. And they said, what are you talking about? He said, I heard the preacher say it, 4 better, 4 worse, 4 richer, 4 poorer. So, emotionally, if you're communicating, you're having good conversation, you're running a household together. So I know, like Dr. Jordan Peterson would say, you'd have to communicate at least 45 minutes a week just about the household that you're running together. That's just about your household. But then you're going out to dinner on a date, and you're talking about whatever's going on in their lives. And then the physical union comes naturally.
Yes.
Because you're praying together and you're talking together, you're going to end up in bed together.
Well, and I've got a handout from a booklet a guy wrote, Can a Man and Woman Be Just Friends? And the thrust of it is, hey, it's natural to progress to the bedroom if you have a healthy relationship. And I don't think it's wrong for women.
And if you ask a woman, can you have male friends? They'll say, yeah, of course. But if you ask any guy is going to tell you, no, you cannot be just friends.
Right, absolutely. And
so I'm saying that too, a woman can be deceived into thinking, oh, this guy is just my friend. Well, if the things end up the natural route, it's going to be more than friendship.
Right. And the woman will say, I never intended
to
commit adultery or to cheat on my husband or get a divorce. It never starts that way. But I always try to lay responsibility on the husband to know his wife.
I got a joke about that too.
Sure.
Okay. If you haven't heard this is a good one.
Okay.
So the Bible tells us to dwell with our wives according to knowledge. If that verse wasn't in the Bible, I wouldn't think that'd be a possibility. So I know that since so one of the great challenges of man is understanding a woman.
Yeah.
I never heard a guy say to me, my wife just doesn't understand me.
Yeah. No.
Guys don't care if they're understood or not. They just want to be respected.
Yep.
They want to be honored by their wife, right? So here's a joke. Ready? So guy walking down the beach, he finds a genie bottle, and genie gives him 3 wishes, and he burns through a couple, and then it's his last one. He says, okay, this is your last one. He said, okay. He said, I want to understand women. And the genie said, come on. I mean, that is a really big ask. You have anything else that you'd like to ask for? Oh man, I told her wrong. So first
I know the
highway to Hawaii. Yeah. So he didn't want to go 1,500 miles in a plane, and he didn't like boats, and it take too long. I want to go in a car to Hawaii, 1,500 miles of bridge. You know how much concrete that is? You know how much rebar that is? You know how much steel? Is there anything else? And I'd like to understand a woman.
Yeah.
So that was his second. He said, you want a 2-lane bridge or 4-lane bridge? There you go.
Yeah.
I messed it up. I can't believe it.
And we laugh about that because, and I heard a guy saying, it's not original with me, but I like it. He said, look, women do not expect their husband to 100% understand them because many times they don't understand themselves. But they do want him to 100% try. And any woman knows when her husband is trying or not. And I really believe that's just so true. Hey, if he asks a follow-up question, what could I do to make it better? Men are fixers. Hey, okay, fine, I'll put a Band-Aid on it. Then that's, but.
I think of it this way too. And I try to tell men that a lot of times in our mind, once we have the ring on, it says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. Hey, I got this thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, and that hit a lot of guys, and it hit me this afternoon when you put on, if you ask a guy, why do you love your wife? Well, she's a good cook. She's good. And it's all about the things that she does.
Yep.
And I think that convicted me and a lot of guys because we're guilty of making her a thing. So I acquired this commodity. I acquired her.
Yeah, I earned this.
Yes. And then you think everything is static from I do forward. It's just going to be status quo from then through eternity. But instead, what you have to think is how you won her. I mean, first you went out on a limb and you asked her out on a date and you put yourself out there and it was, you're scared of rejection.
Yep.
She says yes. And then, goes from there and you ask her to marry you. Yes. And you're getting married. You still pursue her the rest of her life. And if she knows she's being pursued by you, that is settling for her. So even if you're a knucklehead, like most of us, but, we're headed her direction trying to figure her out.
Well, and again, I don't, to me, genuineness, there's just a premium on genuineness. And not every husband's good at verbalizing things and all of that, but you can try and you can plot and plan and you can reaffirm your love. And I just grieve when men give up trying. Oh, I don't know. I have no idea what makes her happy. I couldn't care less. I don't know. But women are tuned into that. They can sense it from 100 miles away. But they're equally sensitive when he's thoughtful and says, hey, remember when we were dating, I had a motorcycle? Well, I still have my cycle license, and I borrowed a guy's bike, and this weekend I want to take you for a ride. Anything that shows that he still values that time alone with her. I had a saying when I pastored, and I'd say to our men, somebody's going to take your wife to a motel. Why don't you let it be you?
Right.
Because the motel, there is no ironing. There is no kids. There is no meal fixing. You're just alone with her. You can recapture for one day, one night, what you had in that virgin innocence of dating, where it's just the two of us and we do something together. My wife and I, the whole years we were married, even though we had kids and not much money, Friday nights or Saturdays, we would go do something. We would go someplace, the Maritime Museum, and look at all the shipwrecks that were in the Great Lakes, or we went places that were free and cheap, but we went alone and spent time together and built memories together. The fabric that holds our marriage together is we have all these memories of stuff we did. But to my wife, it was Randy thought of this, and Randy planned it, and he found a babysitter, and so I can go do this. And even if it's just for 4 hours, even if it's just 30 miles up the road, I initiated the mental attitude love. You probably wouldn't do this, but our honeymoon suite on our 10th anniversary, I made arrangements for somebody else to take we had 6 kids by then. And I rented our honeymoon suite a day ahead of time. So on our 10th anniversary, it happened to be on a Sunday. And so Sunday night after church, I says, hey, Lori, let's go back to that hotel where the honeymoon suite was and see if they've redecorated it. No. I had somebody else taking the kids home. I says, look, we'll just run over there and see it and come back. It was nearby. And so, all right. And so now I had packed clothes. I brought her a nightie, a hairbrush, and our wedding pictures. What more could she possibly need? And so I went in the hotel like I'm getting the keys. I already had the keys. I came back out and I says, okay, they said we could look in there, but, somebody else has rented it. And so we went to the honeymoon suite, and I popped the door open, and I picked her up, and I carried her across the threshold, and I threw her on the bed, and she is screaming, Randy, they're going to know somebody was in here. You got it. This is crazy. But I locked the door, and then we've got to get back the kids. I said, no, I rented this for tonight. And Randy, we have to. But I'm saying she complained for an hour and talked about it for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Randy took me back to our honeymoon suite on our anniversary. And I'm saying,
and ladies, we have to realize as men, they have that high emotional intelligence. They have way more social acumen. So they can they can remember something special that happened 30 years ago. They could tell you what the weather was and what she was wearing and what they were wearing and,
Right.
what the lighting was like in the room. And
My daughters are adults now, and she'll say, "You know what he packed? A brush and a pair of underwear and a nightie. That's what I was supposed to. I mean, I had my church clothes on, and that's the only thing he brought was our wedding pictures." And I'm saying they've laughed about it,
Yeah.
and I'm just saying, men, if they would apply a little bit of brain power, if they want to buy a motorcycle, they know how to think and plot and plan and save and select and try out. If it's something a man wants to do, he can do it.
yeah.
And that's my
and
challenge.
that's,
to the
the
men.
thrill of the chase. And like you said, it has to be intentionally, and it doesn't take a lot of money to be thoughtful and kind. And, you don't have to get a dozen roses. You can go get one rose,
Right.
and then next week get one more rose. And
We have a wild rose bush on our farm, and my father every year when that was in bloom would cut a few sprigs of wild roses and bring them in to Mom, and Mom would smooch him and hug him and tell him thank you. And my whole marriage, we still live on that farm, and that rose bush still yields. And again this year, I mean, hey, I got kids, I got grandkids, I got great-grandkids, but I still went and picked wild roses and got the vase and put in the water. And when she came, there's the roses on the counter. And I'm saying there are ways to tell a woman, I still love you. I still want to be with you. And I just feel badly for the men that haven't been challenged to do that or haven't.
I think another
chosen
challenge for men too is nothing's cheaper than ink and paper.
Yep.
You write your wife a nice letter. When's the last time a nice, thoughtful letter was written to your wife? Yep. And even if you're not good at, you can hardly put a sentence together. Just like you were saying, the thought, or she knows the intentions. Man, this guy is really trying. He must really care about me.
And to me, it's, you don't wait till she's got 1 foot out the door and then try to rekindle that. That it's preventative medicine is so much better. Hey, don't let it descend to that. And, it helps a lot. And I'm saying to the women that might be listening, it helps a lot if you would say thank you, if you'd show appreciation, if you don't question his motives. Oh, why'd you do that? Or what's wrong with that? I'm reminded of the 60-year-old woman got out of the shower, and boy, she walked past the mirror and she was kind of grossed out at how gravity had won, and her cheek sag and her arm sags and her butt sags, everything sags, and she's just grossed out. And just then the husband walked in the bedroom and she says, honey, I need some encouragement. I feel so blue. Look at me. I'm just ugly. Everything on me is sagging. My cheeks sag, my eyes sag, everything's sagging. Say something positive, something encouraging. And the husband says, well, near as I can tell, your eyesight's perfect. and somehow we men don't always know exactly what to say. And just, the age-old joke of, honey, do I look fat in this? It's a no-win. It's a no-win. And so early I learned this, honey, they just don't make clothes to do you justice. Find a safe landing spot. And I'm saying, I don't want that to sound demeaning toward women, but they already are more self-critical. They don't like their eyes. They don't like their nose. They don't like their face. They don't like that they're blonde instead of brunette or whatever. They don't need to have the criticism reinforced. They're already self-conscious enough. And so a little encouragement goes a long way, and it goes a real long way if you're the husband that knows how to reinforce your love for her. We know that as we get older, we're not near as attractive, but men don't care. okay, I lost my hair and I'm round in the middle and I can't play hopscotch anymore, but so what? But a woman feels that a lot more deeply than a man does. And so I just treasure your wife, love your wife as unto the weaker vessel. We always look at that as a crystal goblet. The more fragile, she's different than a beer mug. She's different than an iced tea decanter. She's the crystal goblet that you put at the very front and center of your china cabinet. Mm-hmm. She's esteemed and valued.
She's his crown. Proverbs 31 is that she's at the very top of his being.
Yep.
He's on the first and forefront of his mind. She is.
Well, it does us good to remember it's not good that the man should be alone. Go to any bachelor's apartment, you'll find out how true that is.
Yes.
We need them.
Yes, and women are the reformers and the refiners of the human race.
Yep,
if it wasn't for women, guys would never bathe, live in cardboard box, and humanity would not be here.
On Mother's Day, I heard a guy preach, and he said, if you think of Adam and Eve, and they have Cain and Abel, and their oldest kid turns out to be a murderer. Their second kid dies in his youth. Their kid's a vagabond in the earth, and it's not until Seth that men began to call upon the Lord. And if motherhood was going to be easy, it wouldn't have started out with something like labor pains. And even the very first woman, think of the heartache and the burden it must have been to her that her first children had such regrettable things. And husbands, through it all, the steady eddy, the rock, the support, the anchor, the husband needs to be that, but he doesn't have to be implacable. He doesn't have to be unaware. He doesn't have to be uncaring. You can know your wife, and that's my plea. That's my constant challenge. And I'm not saying I do it all perfectly, but 52 years later, and we're more happily married than we've ever been. And I'm mighty thankful for the sweet, dear wife God gave me. I'm thankful for her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think in conclusion, my thoughts, if we're talking about true love in marriage, and Ephesians chapter number 5 and Colossians chapter number 3 are the two prominent chapters in the Bible that are about marriage. And the funny thing is, they're not really directly addressing marriage. Marriage is used as an illustration of Christ and the church. Yeah. And so the gospel is first and foremost supposed to be seen in the home. And so I'm supposed to have a supernatural love towards my wife, not just a natural love towards my wife. If I had a natural love towards my wife, I would say, yeah, she's a good cook, she's a good mother. Of course I love that woman. I'd be foolish not to. And that would be an unsaved good guy.
Yep.
Six-pack Joe, has got common sense and say, I'm going to stick with this woman.
Yep.
And then, but I'm supposed to love her as Christ loved the church. So if I have a selfless love towards my wife, and that's directed in three different ways towards her spiritually, because she's my sister in Christ. And so her and I are prayer partners. We have a walk with the Lord together. We worship the Lord together. And in fact, studies show that if you have the same religion as your spouse, it doesn't even matter if you're Christian or not. Yeah. You are far more likely that you are going to stay together. If you have two different ones, it's far more likely that you're going to split. Because you're not spiritually united. So even if you were a Muslim and a Roman Catholic or whatever, and so you invest spiritually into your relationship, and then emotionally, you got your soul, spend time together, spend time communicating together. And that physical aspect, which is really the shallowest, the biggest draw.
Absolutely.
Man, you get past the barriers of age when you have prayed with that woman, you love her in Christ, you've seen good times and bad together with that person. That physical aspect, I think, with aging, I don't care, man. Take your teeth out, honey.
Well, and see, in my mind, I couldn't agree with you more. And we always just said, sex is just sex. If that's the most important part of your marriage, you're going to be sadly disappointed. And we just always use the illustration of a guy who stubs his toe. You don't think about your big toe unless you run into something.
That's the truth.
And then it hurts and you limp and it affects the way you walk. And no, I don't want to go all the way across the room and I don't want to do anything because my big toe hurts. When the physical side of marriage is healthy and normal, it is not the focal point of the relationship at all. You just have this natural outworking of physical love because you love them as a person. And it's notable that in the Ephesians 5 passage, there's 3 verses that tell the wife how to love her husband and submit to her husband and follow her husband. And then there's 9 verses to the men of how they're supposed to love the church. And this unselfishness, you use this selfless term. If you would be unselfish, if you preferred the other one before yourself, if you said, when it comes to our household and our expectations, I want to please my spouse more than myself. When it comes to the money, I want to please my spouse more than myself. And when it comes to the bedroom, I want to please my spouse more than myself. Mm-hmm. If 2 people are unselfish, they can have a happy, secure, compatible marriage. But when somebody demands selfish things, that's where the trouble starts.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. I love it. I love this.
That's sermon number 2, right? Next time you're with us, we'll do that. Hey, thank you for being on. I really, really appreciate this very much. Man, we put him to work this week.
I love
this weekend, really. We worked him hard. You're into overtime.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, God bless you, Brother King.
Thank you.
Well, last words?
Yeah, I'm for the pastor in the church, and I'm for the husband and his marriage. And when the Bible says a pastor is supposed to be a lover of good men, if you think of the dynamics, God already had the home in Genesis. In Genesis 9, he started civil government, and then he started the church. Upon this rock I'll build my church in Matthew 16 and 18. And the best gift any home has is a Bible-believing pastor in church. The wife can't tell her husband what to do. The kids can't tell the husband what to do. But a God-given pastor can tell a husband how to be a better husband. And so to me, a good local church pastor is a gift to that home. He's not competing, but he's helping the husband lead so he can have a secure and happy home. We're not enemies, we're allies. The church needs good families, and the family needs a good church.
Amen. Hey, thank you, Brother King. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Pastoral Thoughts podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at pastorthoughtsmail@gmail.com. Also, if you want to check out more about our ministry here, you can visit pastorjack.org. I do have a blog that I do write. I'd love to have you as one of my subscribers there. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. God bless you.